I must have been 12. Young enough to be frightened by shadows, old enough to be left alone in the house. My mother had just started trusting me with solitude, and I relished it like a secret reward. It made me feel older than I was, like the silence of the house conferred some kind of dignity, an invisible badge of trust. Our home stood at the edge of a quiet street, where the sun slipped slowly behind rows of identical rooftops. The neighborhood had that curated calm only small towns can afford, where porch lights flicker on in unison and screen doors never lock until deep into the night. People smiled at each other. Nobody watched their back. That night was ordinary in every sense, which is perhaps why I remember it so clearly. My parents were going out, a dinner with friends or maybe a party. I don't recall the reason, only that I was alone. My sister was gone, visiting a friend, and for the first time in a while the house was all mine. They left me $20 on the kitchen counter. Enough for a pizza and a modest tip. I ordered from Johnny's, the pizzeria 3 blocks down the road, a place we trusted so much that we never checked the receipt. I remember my fingers dancing on the phone buttons, the way I tried to sound older when placing the order. Confident, like I did this all the time. I spent the early evening in the dim glow of my bedroom, playing Nightfire on the PlayStation. I was deep into my 3rd run, half listening for the doorbell, my controller slightly greasy from the anticipation of pizza. When the doorbell finally rang, I felt my heart skip. Not out of fear, but excitement. I ran down, the bill in hand, already doing the math for the tip. The man on the porch didn't look like someone from Johnny's. He was in his 30s, maybe, a long, stringy beard, glasses that caught the porch light, a black trucker's hat pulled low enough that I couldn't see his eyes clearly. His clothes looked damp, though the sky had been clear for days. He smelled faintly of something metallic, something sharp and faintly sour. He held out the pizza with one hand and counted my change with the other. His fingers were long, twitchy. He glanced behind me into the hallway, then back at me. "You alone here?" he asked. My heart stalled. I said the first thing I could think of. "My parents are on their way home." He didn't say anything else, just handed me the change, nodded once, and walked back toward the street, disappearing behind the trees without another word. I shut the door quickly, locking it as I'd seen my dad do, twisting it hard as if to seal away that moment. I ate my pizza in the kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator keeping me company. It was quiet, almost too quiet. That was the last moment I remember feeling truly safe in that house. The pizza box sat half empty on the counter. I had wrapped the rest in foil, just like Mom asked, the tin glinting under the soft yellow kitchen light. It was past 10 now. The summer air drifted in through the cracked windows, warm and heavy with the scent of grass and distant rain that never came. Somewhere outside, a cicada chirped and then fell silent. I was back upstairs, slouched on my bedroom floor, the glow of Agent under fire casting flickers of blue and green against the wall. I didn't like this game as much. Too glossy, too bright. I missed the darker corners of Nightfire, the quiet, the tension, the unknown. It was close to 11 when the doorbell rang again. I paused the game. That pause, so small, felt like it stretched time. I waited a moment, thinking maybe it was a mistake. A neighbor, perhaps. But then I heard it again. The chime, faint but deliberate. I crept down the stairs, more cautious this time, my socked feet silent on the wood. The porch light was still on, but the angle from the top of the stairs made it hard to see who was at the door. I didn't want to go down. I didn't want to ask. Still, my voice came out, weak but clear. "Mom? Dad?" No answer. Then, from the other side of the door, "Hey, I need help." A man's voice, soft, raspy, unfamiliar. My body froze. My fingers curled around the banister. "Who is it?" "I just need to use a phone," he said. I didn't move. I didn't speak. My thoughts started to scatter, my stomach folding in on itself. My gaze drifted to the hallway mirror near the entry, just past the stairs. It reflected the shape of the man, tall, broad-shouldered, unmoving, his head tilted ever so slightly toward the door, like he was listening. I backed away slowly, step by step, until the floor creaked under me. That was when he spoke again. "Wait, please," he said a little louder now. "I need help." The words sounded wrong. Not urgent, not afraid. They sounded measured, like lines from a script he had practiced. I turned to go upstairs. That's when I heard the sound. A bang, not loud, but sharp, on the door. I looked back, and there he was. He had moved closer to the glass. Our front door had a small frosted window near the top, meant to let in light but keep out eyes. But on summer nights, when the lights inside were on and the porch lights were weak, you could just barely make out the shape of someone standing there. And he was looking in. He had seen me. I ran, faster than I ever had. The house was too quiet, too big. Every light switch seemed far away. I made it to my parents' bedroom and slammed the door shut, twisting the tiny lock that always felt too flimsy. Then I picked up the house phone. My hands were shaking. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. At first, I heard laughter behind her voice, like the echo of a restaurant or a bar. Then something changed. Her tone sharpened when she heard mine. She must have heard the fear. I told her someone was at the door, that he asked to come in, that he saw me. The background noise vanished. "Did you answer him?" she asked, her voice urgent now. "Did he see you?" I swallowed. I think so. I didn't open the door, but I asked who it was. She cursed under her breath. I think that was the moment it became real for her too. I mentioned the pizza guy. I could almost hear her thoughts racing on the other end. She asked if I told him I was alone. I said I tried not to, but maybe I had. I didn't know anymore. My voice was trembling, thin, like it might disappear. Then 3 more rings at the door. Slow, even. I told her. She whispered into the phone, trying to keep calm, but her words came faster. "Lock the door. Stay in our room. Don't talk. Your dad's calling the police right now." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Okay." The silence in the house returned, but it had changed. Before, it had felt peaceful. Now it was a silence that pressed against my ears, that listened back. I crouched by the bed, curling the phone cord around my fingers. Every breath felt like it might echo. Then I heard it. The side gate. It always made a faint, tinny creak when it opened. We never fixed it because we thought no one ever used it. That night it opened gently, deliberately, as though someone didn't want to be heard. I whispered this into the phone. My mom went quiet. Then she said, very softly, "Don't talk anymore. Just stay there." And I did. Outside the window, the summer air barely stirred the curtains. I remember the scent of dry leaves, of earth. Everything smelled still, dead. Then, somewhere beneath me, soft but unmistakable, the creak of the den window sliding open. I told her barely a breath. She said nothing this time, only the faint sound of her breathing. I waited. Then came the footsteps. Inside the house. Not rushed, not panicked, just slow, curious, like someone exploring, like someone already sure of where they were going. I curled under the bed, the receiver pressed to my ear, the wire snaking over the edge of the mattress. I don't think I blinked for minutes. I barely breathed. My mom told me the police were close, that they were on their way. The footsteps moved through the kitchen, into the hallway, closer. I could picture them even though I couldn't see. Dirty boots, that faint metallic smell again. The stairs creaked next. Each step an echo of something ancient. The house felt smaller now, like the walls were drawing in. I pressed my hand against the wooden floorboards to keep from crying. The footsteps reached the top. Then they stopped, right outside the bedroom door. The doorknob turned once. It didn't rattle, didn't jiggle in frustration, just turned gently, as if the person on the other side expected it to open, like they believed it should. When it didn't, they paused. Then a soft knock. 3 slow taps. No voice. No threats. Just that knock. So light, it barely stirred the air, and yet it felt louder than a scream. The kind of knock that doesn't ask to be let in. It expects to be. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't speak. I didn't want the person to hear me, not even through the thin wood. I could hear my mom on the phone, still whispering, still trying to soothe me with nothing but breath. She must have heard it too, those 3 quiet knocks. The knob turned again. Then silence. The footsteps returned, retreating now, back down the hallway. Each step a small mercy. I imagined him passing my room, my sister's room, checking, looking, listening. My mother whispered that the police would be there any minute. She told me not to move, not even to speak. So I lay there, beneath the bed, staring at the shadows on the floor, trying to breathe without sound. A minute passed, then 2. I thought he was gone, but the house remained alive. Floorboards creaked downstairs, the faint groan of a cabinet door, the soft clatter of something glass. He was still there, just not searching anymore. Now he was wandering, touching, exploring. I imagined his hands brushing the countertops, pausing on photographs, lingering on doorknobs, like he wanted to know us, know me. It wasn't a burglary. It never was. He had come for me, and somehow I had let him know I was here. Then suddenly heavy footsteps, more than one pair, voices sharp and commanding. Police. I didn't hear them break down the front door. I heard them come in from the back, because the back door, I would learn, had been left wide open. The sliding glass window too, pushed all the way aside like an invitation. I heard them shout my name, identify themselves, and only then, only when I heard my mother's voice say, "You can go now," did I crawl from beneath the bed and unlock the door. The hallway lights were on. They made everything look wrong. Too bright, too yellow. There were 4 officers in the house, weapons drawn. 2 were upstairs with me. The others moved through the rooms below. I didn't ask if they caught him. They didn't need to tell me. The window was open. The gate was ajar. He was gone. They never found him. My parents called lawyers, tried to press charges against the pizzeria, but there wasn't enough. The delivery man I described never came back to work. The manager swore he'd never seen him, as if he was a ghost who had slipped into a uniform for one night only. We never went back to Johnny's. I still live in the same house, the same bedroom, the same hallway where I once listened to quiet footsteps in the dark. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the windows are cracked and the air smells like rain that never comes, I think I hear a knock, 3 slow taps, just a whisper against the wood. And I wonder what would have happened if I had opened the door. When I was 16, my parents uprooted our lives from the sun-washed suburbs of California and dropped us into the dark, wooded silence of North Idaho. They had retired young. Both teachers, both eager to escape city noise and live in what they called the stillness of nature. They built their dream home miles from the nearest town, a palatial log estate nestled in the backcountry, where the tree line kissed the porch and the nights hummed with the low drone of wind through pine needles. The house was beautiful, too beautiful, maybe 2 stories tall, outfitted with a full gym, a pool table and bar room, and even a small private theater in the basement. It was the kind of house you see in magazines, except there was no one around to admire it but the deer, and sometimes the distant wail of a coyote. It didn't feel like home to me, not at first. I missed the familiar hum of cars passing, the glow of porch lights from neighbors, even the low-grade tension of city life. Out here, the quiet was so total it felt unnatural. It didn't take long before that silence started whispering things I didn't know how to explain. One weekend, my parents went out to dinner in town, something they did from time to time to remind themselves they were still human. I stayed behind and invited my girlfriend over. We were alone in the big house, half laughing at how ridiculous it felt to have all this space to ourselves. I cracked a beer, even though I wasn't supposed to, and we headed downstairs to the movie room to watch Gladiator. We curled up together in the reclining chairs, surrounded by the soft hush of surround sound and the cold flicker of the screen's glow. It was cozy, intimate even. But halfway through the film, a shift came over me, sudden and inexplicable. It started with a tingle at the base of my neck, the kind you get when you know someone's behind you, watching. My chest tightened. The hairs on my arms rose. I couldn't explain why, but every cell in my body told me to get up and run. I tried to ignore it, forcing a smile, letting my girlfriend's hand rest warm in mine. but my eyes kept flicking up involuntarily to the dark windows behind us. Windows that opened into blackness, where the trees pressed close to the house like silent witnesses. After she left, I walked her to her car. The air was cold and sharp, the kind of cold that makes your skin prickle. She drove off, headlights sweeping across the trees, and I stood alone in the driveway, the only sound the distant thrum of her engine fading away. I turned to go back inside, flipping off lights as I retraced our steps. The theater room, the bar, and that's when I saw him, standing just beyond the large glass window, silhouetted against the snow-flecked black, was a man. He looked like something spat out by the forest. Tangled hair, clothes ragged and filthy, a wide grin carved across his face like a slash. In his hand was a knife, long serrated. He was tapping it gently against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I remember backing away slowly, like if I moved too fast, I'd startle him, like he was some wild thing that would spring through the glass if provoked. The tapping was soft, almost rhythmic. The knife gleamed faintly under the moonlight as it kissed the window pane again and again. That smile, it didn't falter. Not once. Not even when I left the room. I crept into the bar room next, telling myself I just needed to shut off the lights and get upstairs. But the bar had its own set of windows. A wide sliding glass door that looked directly into the woods. I flicked the switch and there he was again. He had moved. Calmly, silently, like a shadow repositioning itself. Now he stood on the other side of the glass door, still smiling, still staring. I don't know how he got there so fast. I don't remember hearing footsteps. It was like he had always been there, just shifted his place in the world without moving. We were less than a foot apart, just a pane of cold glass between us. I could see every line in his face, every blotch on his skin. His pupils didn't seem to move. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just watched me, and that damn smile, like it was stapled to his face. I didn't scream. I didn't speak. I just turned and walked upstairs. My parents were just coming through the front door when I reached the top of the stairs. I didn't try to play it cool. I didn't know how to. The words just spilled out. I think I need to go to the psych ward or something. I swear, I just saw a guy outside. A man with a knife. He was watching me. My mother went pale. My father's eyes narrowed, and without a word, he went to the gun safe, pulled out his rifle and marched outside. I stayed inside with my mom. Her hands were shaking, and when I asked her what was going on, she said quietly, "There've been break-ins. A few houses out here. A man wandering in the woods, trying to get in." She said the police hadn't found him. No one ever got a good look, but the description I gave, down to the hair, the smile matched. They called the sheriff again. A deputy came out, searched the grounds, found nothing. No footprints, no sign of forced entry. Just a night gone quiet again, like the house itself was holding its breath. But that should have been the end. It wasn't. That night, when I lay in bed on the second floor, just above the movie room, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like metal against glass. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. My room was dark, the forest beyond even darker. I tried to tell myself it was the wind, the branches, anything. But I knew. The man had returned. The nights that followed were restless. That tap, 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 kept coming back. Sometimes just as I lay down, other times precisely at 3 a.m., as if someone were watching the clock, waiting for my eyes to close before starting again. At first, it was faint, like metal gently tapping glass. But over time, it seemed to grow louder, more insistent, more deliberate. Yet it never escalated. Never tried to break in. Just tapping. Like he knew I could hear him. I started checking the windows every night. I never saw him again, not with my eyes. But the feeling never left. The certainty that he was still out there, watching, waiting, sank into my bones. On some nights, I thought I heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, deliberate, like someone pacing just above my ceiling. I told my parents, but they never heard anything. They looked at me like I was unraveling. And then winter came. My parents had to go out of town for a few days, business in Spokane. They were hesitant to leave, but I told them I'd be fine. Before they left, my dad handed me a shotgun just in case. We also had our Rottweiler, a big, calm dog who rarely barked. But when he did, you knew something was really there. That night, the world outside was hushed and blanketed in thick snow. The house was silent except for the hum of the furnace and the occasional groan of old wood contracting in the cold. I was sitting in the living room, soft light glowing. The dog curled at my feet. When I heard it, footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate, crunching through the snow like they wanted to be heard. The dog stood up, ears alert. He stared at the front door, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Then he barked. Not once, but loud and furious, the way he never did. Something was outside. Something he didn't like. I didn't move. I didn't want whoever it was to know I was home. I stayed perfectly still, holding my breath. Then came the knocking. Not frantic. Not angry. Just hollow. Taunting. 3 slow knocks on the front door. I didn't answer. I didn't go near. I didn't make a sound. That night, I slept with the shotgun next to me. The door locked, every blind drawn, and the dog curled close to my legs. The next morning, I stepped outside. What I saw turned my stomach cold. Footprints, fresh human prints, had circled the entire house. They paused at every window, every door, as though someone had taken their time trying to look inside. Looking for me. I followed the trail through the yard. It led into the woods, straight at first, but then zigzagging, looping back, veering off at odd angles. Like whoever made them wanted to confuse anyone who followed. I stopped. Something inside told me to go no farther. That night, the tapping returned. Louder this time. More confident. I knew it was him. I unlocked my bedroom door, took the shotgun, and stepped onto the second-floor deck. I switched on the floodlights that lit up the backyard. And there he was, the same man, same greasy clothes, same wide, unblinking smile, knife in hand, staring up at me like he could see straight through me. I raised the shotgun and shouted, "If you don't leave, I'll put one through you." He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared, grinning. I fired a warning shot into the trees, and then finally a reaction. He staggered slightly, then slowly began to back away into the woods, still facing me, still smiling. That's when I decided to let the dog loose. I ran downstairs, opened the sliding glass door, and he took off like a black missile, snarling, barking with a rage I'd never seen before. He had a shock collar, so he wouldn't go too far. But I wanted him to chase that man, because in my heart, I wanted this to be over. And maybe it was, because after that night, the knocking stopped. But I never slept quite the same again. After that night, the woods outside the house grew quiet again. No more tapping on the windows, no more footsteps crunching in the snow. The silence was heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I stayed awake longer, listening, waiting for something, anything, to break the stillness. But nothing came, just the cold wind moving through the trees. I tried to convince myself that the man was gone for good, that the dog had chased him off or scared him away. But deep down, I knew the forest never forgets. It keeps secrets beneath its frozen blanket, and shadows that slip just out of sight. Days passed, then weeks. My parents came back, and life slowly returned to normal. The house felt safe again, at least on the surface. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind whispered through the branches, I'd catch myself staring out the windows, feeling those same cold eyes watching from the dark. I could almost hear that soft tapping again, faint but impossible to ignore. It's been years since then. The forest still stands, endless and silent, just beyond the edge of the backyard. And sometimes, when the night is still and the air turns sharp, I swear I hear that tapping, like a quiet reminder that some things never really leave, that some darkness waits patiently just beyond the glass. It was March of 2022, during spring break. I was in my second year of college, desperate for a break from all the noise and pressure. 6 of us, myself, Matt, Chris, Tyler, and the 2 girls, Jess and Sarah. decided to rent a cabin deep in the woods of South Carolina. The plan was simple. No school, no stress, no phones, just a few days to get away from everything. We wanted a quiet trip, the kind where you drink too much, play music too loud, and maybe make some memories to laugh about later. The cabin was dirt cheap, surprisingly large for the price, 2 stories with a wraparound porch and 2 bathrooms. It was listed as private land near a lake, miles from the nearest town, surrounded by dense forest. The owner had a thick accent and sounded off when we talked on the phone. "Don't wander too deep into the woods," he warned. "Old wells, busted fences, snakes. You don't want to get turned around." We laughed it off as some southern charm, maybe a little local superstition meant to add atmosphere. But the drive there felt endless. An hour before the cabin, our GPS died. The last stretch was a narrow dirt road, barely wide enough for 1 car, flanked by trees that seemed to lean in close, swallowing the fading light. When we pulled up, the place looked nothing like the photos. It was older, dirtier. The windows dusty, some shutters hanging by a hinge. There was a faint, sour smell outside, like damp garbage mixed with rotten wood. We joked about it, saying it added character, but even then, the mood shifted. We unpacked, claimed our rooms, and started drinking. By 7, we were grilling outside, music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker, playing card games and laughing. But by 11, the temperature dropped, and we moved indoors. That's when I noticed the woods. Not just dark, but a heavy blackness that pressed in around the porch lights. The trees were thick and silent. No bugs, no wind, just an oppressive, still quiet that seemed unnatural. I tried to shake it off and went to bed around 2 a.m., in a small room next to the kitchen. The window faced the woods, and that night, I was woken by a tapping. At first, I thought it was the heater, but the rhythm was too deliberate. Tap, tap, tap like fingers on glass. When I looked at the window, I saw him. A man, pressed against the glass, face almost touching it. Pale skin, wild tangled hair, no shirt, just standing there, staring. His mouth hung open slightly, as if he was breathing through it. His eyes were wide, unblinking, like he wasn't quite human. The tapping was slow and deliberate, almost teasing. My body locked up. I whispered for Matt, who was sleeping on the couch just outside my room. When he came over groggily and I pointed, his expression changed. He jumped up, knocking over the coffee table in the process. That must have scared the man off, because when Matt flicked on the porch light and ran outside, there was nothing. Just the dark woods. The girls were terrified. Tyler tried to rationalize it. Probably some drunk local messing with us. Chris suggested it might be a lost hunter. But I knew. That was no random stranger. He wasn't lost. We blocked all the doors, moved the couch in front of the big living room window, and took shifts staying awake for a few hours. The night passed quietly after that. The next morning we found footprints. Bare human prints, fresh in the dirt, circling the entire cabin. They stopped at every window, even the small one above the upstairs shower. Whoever had been watching was thorough. Searching. We should have left then. But we stayed. The second night started much the same. Drinks, music, a fire pit outside. But the atmosphere was different. Tense, uneasy. Everyone kept glancing toward the woods. Jess didn't drink. Chris carried his hunting knife strapped to his belt. We locked every window tight and double-checked the doors before going to bed. Around 3 a.m., Matt got up to get some water from the kitchen. I was still half asleep when he called my name, pointing down the hallway. There he was again, the same man. But this time he was inside, naked. His back faced us, covered in raw-looking, long scratches. He swayed slowly in front of the fridge like a lost soul, unaware of where he was. Matt didn't say a word. He backed away quietly. We gathered in the hallway, gripping whatever we could. My pocket knife, Sarah's fire poker, a broken chair leg Chris had snapped earlier. We flipped the lights on, but he was gone. The back door stood wide open. No signs of forced entry, just open. We left 20 minutes later. No arguing, only scared silence. We packed our essentials, wallets, keys, phones, and drove through the forest until we found cell signal. Then we called the sheriff. The deputy we met at a roadside diner didn't seem surprised. Asked if anyone was hurt. Said they'd had trouble with squatters in those woods before. People not quite right in the head. We told him it wasn't just some homeless guy. The man had watched us, come back 2 nights in a row, and somehow gotten inside the cabin. He just nodded like he'd heard it all before. When we mentioned the owner, the deputy's face changed. Like he knew more than he said. A few days later, the cabin listing disappeared from every site.
No refund. No explanation.
But that face, the pale skin, wild hair, wide unblinking eyes, I still see it sometimes in the dark, when the night is too quiet and the wind carries strange sounds from the woods. We don't talk about that trip much anymore. None of us have gone back to South Carolina since. And maybe that's best, because some places hold shadows you don't want to chase, and some watchers don't stop watching.